Good afternoon, everyone who joined us today. Media Center Ukraine Nuclear Forum continues its work. Today we mark International Day of Children Protection, and we talk about children protection in war times. Kateryna Pavlichenko, Deputy Minister of Interior, was our next speaker. Please, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. Thank you. Actually, the International Day of Children Protection is the day when we remind the whole community about the necessity to protect the rights of children. However, the war that we have today, that was started by Russia against Ukraine, it violates the meaning of safety of children overall. Today is the 97th of day of war. The aggressor is taking lives of little Ukrainians. We have a situation when in the 21st century, at the times when we have to protect the rights of children, children are dying, are traumatized from bombs, from bullets, from ammunition that flies to the Ukrainian territory on the heads of peaceful citizens. The statistics of what we have today regarding killed children during this war, 243 children died, wounded 446 children, innocent, young Ukrainians. We understand that children are the most vulnerable category of the population, and for the Ministry of Interior and for the departments of Ministry of Interior, the priority is to save and to protect our children from the horrible consequences of war that we face today. And we put maximum efforts to renew the safe environment for our children, to return happy future to them, happy childhood, for them to feel safe. Most critical issues that the ministry and its bodies is focused on is movement and evacuation and deportation of children, because a lot of children were deported, were forcibly moved to Russian territory or to Belarus, and I will speak more about that later. Also, National Police uses actively means to search of lost children, and the majority of children we find. The separate issue that our bodies are focused on is getting data on location of children that were moved to Russian Federation or Belarus without consent of their guardians or parents. Moving to figures, I want to say that since the start of the war, the investigators, National Police of Ukraine, started 393 criminal cases regarding crimes of Russian Federation military, and as a consequence of those crimes, 558 children suffered, 223 are wounded, and 103 children have been missing. Also, there are criminal cases in National Police. The fact of Russian Federation servicemen, the crimes against sexual freedom and of children. Also, the cases are open according to the information that was put in media, and that data is being checked, and we define the data, we add data, and investigations are ongoing. Since the start of the war, too, the bodies of National Police were received 1,800 of applications about missing children. About 2,000 children. The majority of them were found. Currently, We searched 139 children. At least the information that at least 234,000 people or children crossed the border from with the Russian to the Russian territory. So we moved from Ukraine territory and from temporary occupied territories. Right now, we try to define more precise data regarding children that were moved from territory of Ukraine and temporary occupied territory of Ordlo. So deported, illegally transferred children. Now we put additional attention on and migration community also on children that are not under parental care. We understand that for children that are not in parental care and or in particular orphans, there's a real threat of illegal adoption on the territory of Russia. Foregoing the legal procedure of international adoption that exists in Ukraine. So this, our state pays a lot of attention to it. Evacuated over 4,177 children of institutional facilities children, 2,080 are orphans and children that are not under parental care. Since the open-scale aggression of Russia against Ukraine, the border guard of Ukraine over 900 effects of crossing the border by children to exit the country. They're exiting more to the territory of the European Union. When children were evacuating at the time when there was actual fighting. At the same time, over 400,000 children were returned to the territory of Ukraine. They came back. I want to mention that State Migration Service quite fastly simplified the process of issuing and change of international passports that are necessary to cross the border. And this made it easier for children to cross the border at the time when we had a very germane stream of evacuation of people and children, in particular children, to abroad. Also, there is one more innovation. It's a possibility for parents or a legal representative of children to form and use e-passport to leave abroad for children under 14 years. I wanted also to mention that the bodies of state emergency situation service, they're actively working on demining of territory, on removing the clutter, and this is very important because children, they're very curious and they try to look all the objects that are around, and sometimes those objects are dangerous, that could be explosives. Therefore, the separate branch is demining of territories that were occupied and that were where there were active military action. Also, emergency situation service during the war saved 168 children. The situations when children were in the extreme situations, fires that were caused by war. And the rescuers constantly inform parents, guardians about the risks and threats about explosive objects that are dangerous for children. 48 classes of safety are created in the state. One out of them is inclusive class for special needs children with special needs. Also, there are, I would also like to mention that border guard service controls the legality of crossing the border by children. There are cases when parents or guardians or children try to cross the border, but when they don't have the proper documents. And in such cases, the border guards use necessary means to not to violate the legislation in force. There are cases where they refused to cross the border, where there are forged documents or absence of documents or absence of consent of parents. That's in a nutshell the situation. The data about the operations of the system of the Ministry of Interior and its bodies on protection of children's rights. Of course, the figures that we have right now, they're not positive. They're far from positive. They're horrible because in the conditions of full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine, we face with a lot of a violation of human rights, in particular children's rights. And these figures, they are shocking, actually. They're crippled destinies of little Ukrainians. But I believe that with joint efforts, we will manage to renew and rebuild Ukraine and return all children that are currently were forced to abandon and to leave the territory of Ukraine. Thank you, Kateryna. Speaking of evacuation, we understand, is evacuation ongoing from the settlements that are currently under fire of enemy, like Bakhmut, Slovyansk, Lysychansk? Is evacuation ongoing, and is it possible? Evacuation is continuing, but of course the biggest part of children is evacuating, biggest, and wherever necessary, wherever it's possible, it's to conduct the units of national police jointly with the social services. They continue evacuation of children from places where there are most active war activity. Thank you to your colleagues. You can ask questions, please. Ukraine Forum. There was a project for territorial communities. Safety educator. Is it developing now, and how many communities joined this project? Yes, actually, there was such project. We initiated it before the war, and I want to say that there was even a selection of those who would be trained to become a trainer of safety. It had to be in Kyiv, and there was even an agenda for conducting that training. But now we try to update the data. Not all the communities that were agreeing to do it are willing to continue it. It needs to be updated, and currently we are updating it. Also, the schools where it was planned to launch this project are part of them are ruined. We will continue the project, of course, but most likely it will be changed in the part of territories where it will be implemented, which school it will be, and communities, and also it'll be changed in the part on the agenda of preparation of training those specialists, because we are aware that the situation that we have right now, it needs a different approach and needs changes. One more question regarding moving children abroad, the children that are not under parental care. How many children are like that are in different countries, and totally, and in which countries? And where the Ukrainian children is the biggest amount of Ukrainian children in which countries? As I mentioned, about 900 children, from information, or 900,000 children moved out to the EU. Most of them moved to Poland, almost 500,000, to Moldova, over 150,000, to Hungary, over 100,000, to Romania and Slovakia, over 90,000. Children were moved. Outside Ukraine, 4,177 children were moved that are studying in the special institutions, and out of them, 2,382, they are orphans. Children that were moved outside the territory of Ukraine, that are just mentioned, they were registered there, and there is a coordinated control about placement of the children there, and we orient that. We will use all necessary means when it will be safe, so they return to Ukrainian territory. Can I ask in English, please?
Okay. Is there any program being deployed to figure out if how many Russian crimes against children, as opposed to being caught in the general fighting, as opposed to being targeted by Russian forces? And is there anything the Ukrainian government is doing to document them so that war crimes can be pursued?
Yes, naturally. Currently, all the divisions of Ukraine, National Police, the Prosecutor's Office, and Security Service of Ukraine, Secret Service of Ukraine, they accumulate efforts. On the law enforcement bodies, they accumulate efforts to document the crimes of Russian occupants on the territory of Ukraine. And among those crimes, there are also crimes against humanity and against civilians, including crimes against children. Since the start of the war, the investigators of National Police started 393 criminal cases, in particular regarding crimes of Russian military against children. And according to those criminal cases, according to the data that National Police has available, as the consequences of those crimes, 588 children suffered. Out of them, 162 children have died. And the investigators currently of National Police, they use necessary means to define all the accomplices, all the criminals and all the accomplices of those crimes. They document, they investigate, they conduct expertise, and all the necessary complex of means in order to define as many facts as possible to make the criminals responsible. More questions? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kateryna, for joining us. I remind you, Ms. Kateryna Pavlichenko, Deputy Minister of Interior of Ukraine. And at 2:30, Alexander Matizanik will join us, and we will speak about the situation of